Morning. We will call the June 2nd, 2026 Williams County Board of County Commissioners meeting to order. Beth, will you call roll, please?
Barry?
Here.
Steve's on his way. Bo?
Here.
Chris?
Here.
We have a quorum. We'll proceed. If everybody please stand to say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, that brings us to item C, the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented to us this morning.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Discussion? Roll call, please.
Barry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Bo?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay, item D on the agenda is the spot for public comment. If there's something not on the agenda further down and you wish to address the board, now is the time. So we'll give it just a couple seconds if anybody has anything to address the board with. If you have something that's not on the agenda, you come up to the mic, introduce yourself, and then let us know what you'd like to talk about. Make sure you state your name for the record.
My name is Spencer Johnson. I'm from Williston. I don't know if I have to, do I have to lean in here? There we go. There we go. I guess the main thing that is kind of the buzz around town is about the data center that got rushed through. I think you guys are going to probably hear a lot more about it. There's a huge backlash, the way that it was pushed through.
Which one are you talking about that got pushed through?
Well, they're the one that they're constructing.
Is this the one for the city?
Yep.
Okay.
So, but we're within the city. I think it concerns the water, among other things, noise, et cetera, et cetera. So this is more just a heads up that you'll probably be hearing more about it quite a bit throughout the nation. There's been like this large push for these data centers within the last several months. It's come to the people's attention in town that we have a data center that was being built. Most people didn't know about it. And so I guess it's more of a heads up to everybody in town, really, and just using this format to do that. And like I said, I've heard a lot of stuff that there's going to be a petition, I'm sure. So it's just kind of, a heads up to everybody of what's coming. And I suppose the backlash and the questions that are going to be thrown your guys' way because it affects everybody around here. And it is going to be very important for everybody to be really informed within Williston really quickly of the dangers that something like this represents. So that's about it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Spencer. Appreciate it. Anybody else have any public comment?
I do. I don't know what you guys have covered because I just got here. Charlotte Moore. I wrote it down because it's kind of long, so bear with me. Good morning, Commissioners. I want to be very clear. My concern today is not about discrimination against any person or group or people. My concern is about the land use, zoning, public safety, property values, and the responsibility this board has to the people who already live in this residential neighborhood. The residents who live there.
Excuse me.
I'm talking about
Is this about it's on the agenda, correct?
Correct.
I will let you have time when we get to
Simard.
that. Yeah. When it's on the agenda, I'll give you time during that. This public comment is for something that's not on the agenda. Okay,
So
so
did you guys talk about it last
no,
commission
this
meeting?
is on the agenda coming up. We just started.
So we can't talk about this till next time.
No, not until we get to it on the agenda. It's later in the meeting.
We can
Charlotte.
have public comment then.
Yes, yes,
Okay, I will
absolutely.
continue then. Thank
Yep,
you.
yep. No, that's fine. This is just things that aren't on the agenda. We have the public comments, so people come up and talk. But that's on the agenda, so we'll get you then.
All right, perfect.
Thanks. Anyone else? Okay, that will close the public comment. Right now we are at new business, item E. Greg Biella, variance request. Is he here or is somebody here representing him? And you thought it was going to be Ed that was presenting this?
Well, I did send him an email and I did call Ed. So they both knew it was today at this time. So
Okay. Cameron, is this something we need to just table or?
That would be up to the board, but really what it is the township refused to sign the plat. It's not necessarily something after that that's done through our department. That's why they reached out directly to Beth. We've had this happen, I don't know, maybe a handful of times in the past, and the only way to get that recorded without township signature is to have the county commission decide that that's not a requirement. But staff isn't the one that's presenting this, but I just wanted to give you a little background on what the request was.
So you don't know why the township didn't sign the plat?
No, but correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle. I think we've had this issue with this township before.
Yeah, so back in 2020, there was kind of same situation where the township there was plat going through. Township was upset about, I believe it was a frack pond that came through and said that they wouldn't sign a plat. When we originally got this plat, it was sent to the township September of 2025 for their comment. We received no comment back, which isn't always unheard of. We did complete that review process of the plat in December of last year and approved it to print to Mylar. Since then, in February, we got the plat, told Ed that the township was missing the signature. He reached out to Dustin Johnsrud at that time to sign the plat, and Dustin said he would come in and sign. Never came in for a while. He did end up coming in, but said that they did not receive any comment from us. We found our original email, forwarded it on, sent him the township packet again. We have not received any comment back. I know Ed's been trying, Greg's been trying, I tried. We've just heard nothing. It's been crickets from them.
Okay. Any questions you guys have, or what are your thoughts?
So do we have to go through the whole issue again then or do we just wait for the township yet?
So when we reviewed these instances in the past, the county commission has made the decision at this meeting whether or not to allow it to be recorded without that signature.
When would this have been approved? Like, did this have to go through P&Z to get all this done?
This one did not. It's just a simple 2-lot minor subdivision with no zone changes or anything like that. So it's just all done administratively. We send township comment packet to them and we give them 30 days to respond. And after that time, we just kind of normally, if we don't hear, they're fine with it and we just move on.
Well, I guess I would like to hear from Ed and this other gentleman before I would make a motion we table this until the second meeting of June.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this and to who will reach out to Ed? Will your office? Okay, we have a motion and a second to table till the second meeting in June. Is there any comments? Roll call, please, Beth.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item F, planning and zoning.
Good morning, Michelle Haugen with County Planning. The first item we have today is LU-0027-26. Ryan Waters with West Dakota Water is requesting a conditional use permit to construct a freshwater holding pond within the agricultural zoning district. This is located in the northeast of Section 35, Township 158 North, Range 101 West, being Orthel Township. As of last week, Orthel Township has not sent in comment for our review. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to construct a freshwater holding pond on the subject property. The pond will be an engineered earthen berm pond that will hold approximately 237.1 acre feet, which is equivalent to approximately 1,839,658 barrels of fresh water. The pond will be more of a flag shape, with the widest portion being approximately 633 feet and the longest at 615 feet. The pond will be clay lined with 3-to-1 interior and exterior side slopes. The perimeter of the pond will be fully fenced with a 4-strand barbed wire fencing. The fresh water for the pond will be obtained by temporary water permits from the Little Muddy. There will be temporary pumps installed. According to the applicant, if the intended use is no longer needed, reclamation will be determined by the landowner, with the pond being left to be utilized by the landowner, or the disturbed area will be reclaimed to its original grade. The purpose of this pond is for storage of fresh water that will be used to aid and support oil well development and production within the area. Access to the pond will be taken off of 139th Avenue Northwest, which is also known as County Road 3. When Planning and Zoning heard this item on May 21st, they did recommend approval 9-0.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Do you have anything to add?
No.
That was easy. Okay. Anybody else have any comments on this one? No. Okay. What are the wishes, gentlemen?
Make a motion to approve following staff comments.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kemp. Any discussion?
Just a couple questions. That the water is to come from the Little Muddy? Is that where they're taking it from?
That's what they said.
Is there that much water in the Little Muddy?
I guess this is kind of the whole reason for building the pond, is that, you know, the Little Muddy is very variable flows. When you get rains like this, a little more water comes down through there. We have conditional permits or temporary permits on the river that we get, and the point is to just slowly fill the pond up so then we can have that big source of water for when the frac comes through there, so then we're not pulling a large amount of water during times of fracking when they're in high demand.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to note that we're supporting the industry with fresh water. And how does that water get used?
It's for hydraulic fracturing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else, Bo? All right, so we have a motion to approve and a second. Can I have a roll call, please, Beth?
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
No.
Chris,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Motion carried.
The next item we have today is LU-0028-26. Fisher Sand and Gravel is requesting a conditional use permit for mining at an existing gravel pit within the agricultural zoning district. This location is the east half of the northwest and the northeast of the northwest of Section 25, Township 159 North, Range 101 West, being Scorio Township, and they have recommended approval on this item. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to mine in an existing sand and gravel pit. The subject property is approximately 60 acres and within the agricultural zoning district. The applicant has a weed management plan and reclamation plan in place, which includes using topsoil that is removed during operations as part of reclamation. The immediate plans for gravel use are for highway and county projects, but foresee the gravel being used elsewhere. Access to the subject property is off Highway 50. When Planning and Zoning heard this item in May, they did recommend approval.
Okay, is the applicant present?
Yes, Vent Wallace, Fisher Sand and Gravel Company.
Okay, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't. Currently, we have no projects in that area. We just wanted to get this approved, so if a project does come up, we can be ready to roll with it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this one? Anything from the board? What are the wishes?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve LU-0026-28-26 following recommendations of P&Z.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Discussion? Roll call, please.
Bo,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes. Motion carried.
Okay, next on the agenda is LU-0030-26. Vaughn Cornell, on behalf of Herbert Cornell, is requesting a variance for a proposed 1 acre lot to remain in the agricultural zoning district. This is in the northeast, except sublot 1 and the state highway of section 11, township 155 north, range 101 west, being Missouri Ridge Township. The township on this one has recommended approval on this. The applicant is requesting a minor subdivision which will create 2 lots. The parent parcel is approximately 140.2 acres and within the agricultural zoning district. The newly created lots will be approximately 1 acre and 139.2 acres. The larger lot will remain in the agricultural zoning district, while the applicant is requesting the variance for the 1 acre lot to also remain in that agricultural zoning district. The purpose of the minor subdivision is to separate out a tract where Herbert and Marlene's grandson's home is currently located. The applicants are requesting a variance rather than a zone change because the grandson farms the tillable land that is part of the larger parcel and would like to see it all remain within that agricultural zoning district. Access to the subject property is off of US Highway 85. When Planning and Zoning heard this item, they did recommend approval 9-0.
Okay, is the applicant present? Do you have anything to add? All right. Anybody else have anything that they would like to address on this one? Okay, what are the wishes?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Discussion. Roll call, please.
Chris,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes. You threw a curveball at us there. I almost answered for you, Bo. Motion carried.
Okay, next on the agenda is LU-0039-26. Ryan King with Basin Electric, on behalf of Mountrail Williams Electric Cooperative, is requesting a conditional use permit to expand the existing Wheelock Substation. This is the northeast of except state highway of section 17, township 156 north, range 98 west, being Wheelock Township. As of last week, we have not received official comment back from Wheelock Township. The applicant is requesting the conditional use permit to expand the existing Wheelock Substation located on the subject property. This conditional use permit would be to amend CUP permit 2011-11-092. The parent property is a total of approximately 33 acres and within the agricultural zoning district. The current substation was originally approved in November of 2011 with construction completed in 2012. The original footprint of the substation covers approximately 7.32 acres, and the expansion will consist of adding approximately 2.23 acres to the west of the current footprint. Access to the subject property is off of 121st Avenue Northwest. When Planning and Zoning heard this item, they did recommend approval.
Okay, is the applicant present? Do you have anything to add? Thank you. Any other comments? What are the wishes?
I'd move to approve this CUP.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Discussion? Roll call, please.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, so the final one I have for you today is LU-0024-26. Steven Simard is requesting a conditional use permit to open and operate a group home within the urban residential zoning district. This is located in Lot 8 of Block 1 of Little Muddy Estate Subdivision, Section 17, Township 155 North, Range 100 West, being Farron Township. Farron Township has recommended denial of the project. They did state on their recommendation that 11 individuals spoke at the meeting. 10 were opposed, with 1 in favor. Petition was presented by residents within 1 mile with 50 plus signatures. They have major concerns over lack of structure, policies, procedures, and safety. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to open and operate a group home within the urban residential zoning district. This group home will be utilized as a sober living home with the goal to give men a safe, structured, and stable environment to live in. According to the applicant, this facility will be for men only and will have a capacity of no more than 13 men. The individuals who will reside in this home will be fully independent individuals who will either have jobs or actively seeking employment and will be required to follow policies and guidelines. The applicant plans to use a program phased in a way for the residents to gain additional independence by demonstrating accountability and commitment to their recovery. The applicant plans to hire on-site staffing in the form of 1 full-time or 2 part-time housing managers who will be responsible for checking in with the residents, administering drug testing, filling out intake and outtake forms, and general property management duties. The applicant will operate this through a 501c3 nonprofit, which they are still working through the process to finalize it with at a federal level. However, they are registered and recognized as a nonprofit through the state of North Dakota as Cornerstone Recovery Foundation. Access to the subject property is off Patriot Lane. The applicant is claiming that the intended residents of the sober living home are protected under the Federal Fair Housing Act and the Federal American with Disabilities Act. According to Williams County Legal Counsel, the Federal Fair Housing Act, or FHA, makes it unlawful to discriminate against an individual with a handicap in the sale or rental of a dwelling, or to make unavailable or deny a dwelling to any buyer, renter, or a person residing in or intending to reside in the dwelling based on the handicap. The Federal American with Disabilities Act, or ADA, makes it unlawful to exclude a person with a disability from participation in public entities' services, programs, or activities, to deny a person with a disability the benefits of a public entity's services, programs, or activities, and to discriminate against a person based on the person's disability. A handicap under FHA and a disability under the ADA are basically defined the same and include individuals with a physical and mental impairment which substantially limits one or more of major life activities, individuals who are regarded as having such impairment, and individuals with a record of such impairment. A physical and mental impairment under the FHA and the ADA includes drug addiction, other than addiction caused by current illegal use of a controlled substance, and alcoholism. The FHA and the ADA both apply to zoning decisions by local governments, including Williams County. Related to the request for a CUP for the sober living home, it would be considered unlawful discrimination and a violation of the FHA and ADA to deny the CUP based on the fact the intended residents of the home are recovering alcoholics and or recovering drug addicts, unless the drug addiction stems from current illegal use of drugs, or grant the CUP but impose restrictions or conditions on the CUP based on the fact the intended residents of the home are recovering alcoholics and or recovering drug addicts, unless the drug addiction stems from current illegal use of drugs. It would not be unlawful discrimination or a violation of the FHA and the ADA to deny the CUP if the intended residents of the sober living home are currently using illegal drugs, or deny the CUP if the intended residents of the sober living home would present a direct threat to the persons or property of others. However, determining whether someone possesses a direct threat must be made on an individualized basis, meaning it must be based on a specific individual, and it cannot be based on general assumptions or speculations regarding recovering alcoholics or recovering drug addicts. It would not be unlawful discrimination or a violation of the FHA to deny the CUP if the intended residents of the sober living home are individuals who have been convicted of the manufacture or distribution, but not the possession, of a controlled substance. Note, the ADA does not contain a similar exception. The FHA and the ADA also give protected individuals the right to request a reasonable accommodation. A request for a reasonable accommodation in this case would likely be a request to modify or waive a zoning or other ordinance, restriction, or condition related to the sober living home or any CUP granted for the home. A requested accommodation must be necessary to afford the intended residents of the sober living home an equal opportunity to use or enjoy a dwelling. The requested accommodation cannot impose an undue burden or expense on Williams County, and the proposed use cannot fundamentally alter Williams County's zoning scheme for the area. When Planning and Zoning did hear this item May 21st, we did not have all of the information from legal counsel inserted in there. However, they did recommend to deny 9-0.
Thank you. Does the applicant have anything to add?
Do I have time to read this?
You sure do.
Okay. Commissioners, members of the Planning and Zoning Board, and members of the community. My name is Steve Simard. I'm the founder of Cornerstone Recovery Foundation. First, I want to thank the commissioners, Planning and Zoning, and everyone who has participated in this process. Whether you support this project or oppose it, the blanket that has covered addiction in our community has been lifted off. I also want to acknowledge my potential neighbors. Many of the people who have spoken against this project are good people. They care about their families, their homes, and their neighborhood. I do not believe their concerns come from bad intentions. I believe they come from a desire to protect what they have worked hard to build. If I knew nothing about sober living homes, I might have some of the same questions. I also want to address something I said earlier in this process. At a previous meeting, I stated that if there was significant opposition from the community, I would consider not moving forward with this project. At the time, I meant that sincerely, and I wanted to be respectful, I wanted to listen, and I wanted to be a good neighbor. And I did listen. I listened to every concern, every letter, every petition, every social media comment, and every conversation that took place throughout this process. But as I listened, I also spent time reflecting on why I started this mission in the first place. I thought about my own journey through addiction. And I thought about the people I used to use drugs with who are still struggling today. I thought about former coworkers, friends, and members of our community who desperately want recovery but have nowhere to go after treatment. And I came to a difficult realization. If I walk away from this project simply because people are uncomfortable with the population we serve, then I am abandoning the very people I claim to care about. There are moments in life when leadership means listening. There are also moments when leadership means standing firm in what you know is right, even when it is unpopular. I changed my mind not because I stopped caring about the concerns of my neighbors. I changed my mind because I started thinking more about the people who have no one speaking for them. The men and women trying to rebuild their lives deserve advocates too. And after everything I have experienced, I cannot in good conscience turn my back on them. Over the last several weeks, we have heard many concerns about this proposed sober living home. Those concerns deserve to be heard, but there is an important difference between concerns and evidence. As I reviewed the letters, petitions, and public comments submitted in opposition to this project, I noticed a common theme. Many of these concerns are based on what might happen, what could happen, and what someone fears could happen. There were concerns about crime, there were concerns about safety, there were concerns about declining property values, and there were concerns about strangers moving into the neighborhood. But throughout this process, very little evidence has been presented showing that a professionally operated sober living home causes any of those outcomes. One statement submitted in opposition said, "We are not opposing lawful residential housing. We are opposing the unpermitted intrusion of a high-density, commercial-style boarding operation into an area without the infrastructure to support it." I believe that statement highlights exactly why this conversation is so important. This project is not a commercial business operating in a residential neighborhood. It is not a hotel. It is not a boarding house. It is not a treatment center. It is a home. The residents who will live there will sleep there, eat there, work in our community, attend recovery meetings, pay rent, live together in a structured environment focused on sobriety and accountability. Calling people in recovery a commercial-style boarding operation does not change the fact that they are people seeking a place to live. The reality is that the concern is not about the structure itself. The concern is about who may live there. And that distinction matters because the question before this board is not whether a building is being converted into a commercial enterprise. The question is whether individuals in recovery should have the same opportunity to live in a residential housing as anyone else. I've also heard concerns about infrastructure and public safety. Yet no evidence has been presented showing that residents in a sober living home place a greater burden on roads, utilities, emergency services, or public infrastructure other than the lawful residential occupants. What has been presented are assumptions about what people believe could happen. Land use decisions should be based on facts, evidence, and the actual use being proposed, not speculation about the individuals who may call the house home. Many of us agree that addiction is a serious problem in Williams County. We agree that recovery matters, and we agree that people deserve a second chance. The question before this board is whether we truly believe those things are enough to support recovery when it is close enough to see. Because everyone supports recovery until recovery requires a place for people to recover. If recovery housing cannot exist in a residential neighborhood, where exactly is it supposed to go? Recovery does not happen in isolation. Recovery happens in communities. It happens where people learn how to live normal lives again, hold jobs, pay rent, build relationships, and become productive members of society. This property is not being proposed as a treatment center. It is not a detox facility, nor a correctional institution. It is a home for people who are choosing sobriety and accountability over addiction. Some have argued that because they are uncomfortable with the idea, the project should be denied. But land use decisions cannot be based on discomfort, assumptions, stereotypes, or fear. They must be based on facts. The true measure of a community is not how it treats people at their best. It is how it treats people who are working to become their best. I stand before you today not only as the founder of Cornerstone Recovery Foundation, but as someone whose life was personally saved by recovery. I know what addiction looks like. I know what hopelessness looks like. I know what it feels like to believe your life is beyond repair. And I know what happens when someone is finally given a safe place to rebuild their life. Recovery gave me a second chance at life, and this home will give others the same opportunity. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for equal treatment. I'm asking that people in recovery be judged by the same standards as anyone else seeking a place to call home. Today, I respectfully ask that this board look beyond fear, speculation, and assumptions, and instead focus on the evidence, the law, and the very real need that exists in our community. Because if people in recovery are not welcomed here, where are they welcomed? And if we truly believe that recovery is possible, then we must be willing to make room for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Before we get to the open public comment, and I think Karen has a couple things that she wanted to add, so we will Steve, if we need you for more questions, we'll ask you. Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, Michelle already read my opinion about federal law on this. Two things that I did want to also mention too is that if this board denies this this conditional use permit for a sober living home, the people are entitled to bring a lawsuit or file complaint with the DOJ, the U.S. DOJ. The DOJ has actually recently filed a suit against a city in New York because they refused to allow a sober living home to exist in a residential property. And these people were recovering from drug and alcohol abuse, really. In 2003, the DOJ actually settled a lawsuit against a city in Illinois that had refused to allow an operator to operate a sober living home for for persons in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction in a residential neighborhood. The DOJ has taken the stance that basically that you cannot deny a cup because that people that are recovering from alcoholism or drug addiction are going to be living in the home. The idea behind the Fair Housing Act really is to encourage integration into residential neighborhoods, really. They have to be treated the same way as any other single family residence or anything like that. So you cannot deny the cup because of the fact that they're dealing with alcoholism or drug addiction. In addition, the DOJ has put out statements basically saying what Mr. Simard has said, though, is that the board can also not deny the cup or put conditions on the cup based on the expressed fears, anxieties, speculations from community members. Although the community members certainly have the First Amendment right to express their opposition and their opinion about this board is obligated by federal law to not be swayed by those comments, really, and to really follow federal law, which actually protects these sober living homes. So
I guess my question for you, Karen, I believe you said 13 people will be living there, up to 13. Does that affect anything, or does it just make it is that still a house? Is it just like a family of 13?
it's still a home because under our zoning ordinances, the group home, it doesn't say that you can only have up to 6 people or up to 10 people because it doesn't have any limits on any group home and it doesn't have any limits on residential housing. You can't impose a separate restriction on a sober living home.
So the federal government's position, the Department of Justice, is that 13 unrelated people in a home is considered the same as a single family residence.
Not considered the same, but they have the right to live in a residential neighborhood.
Well, so they can, recovery or addiction aside, if there was 13 unrelated individuals that came in and wanted to, to do this, well, it's not a single family home. And in a subdivision of single family homes, wouldn't that be that would be a violation of the ordinance, right?
You can't say that because a single family, how somebody defines a family first, family is not defined in a zoning ordinance, really. So you cannot just say somebody that's a single family of people that just related. There's other city ordinances out there, in other states and things where families, single family residents could also be housed by people that are unrelated, really. So it's like the definition of family can't really be what we traditionally think of a family, really.
My idea of family is my family. I'm related to them.
I think
that
the
is
key
the definition
is
of family.
unrelated.
Yeah.
So I know for a fact in Bozeman, and I know this is a totally different scenario, that in subdivisions in Bozeman, Montana, it is unlawful to have more than 6 unrelated people in a home. And that was to keep, actually it's 4, to keep a bunch of college kids from renting a house and creating a ruckus.
Well, that might be what is in Bozeman, but under our zoning ordinances, there's no limitation about the number of unrelated people that can live in a residence.
Isn't that what the conditional use permit addresses, really? The fact that they're requesting a conditional use permit changes it gives us the ability to take that conditional use permit back if it didn't work, if it didn't
Well,
work for some reason, right?
That was one
Well,
of my questions is the CUP necessary because the house does not fit our current zoning? What is the purpose for a conditional use permit then?
Yeah, wouldn't that the request for a CUP because it doesn't fit our zoning is pretty, I mean, that'd be flat out admission that it doesn't fit our zoning, or else we wouldn't be talking about a CUP.
well, to tell you the truth, I mean, Mr. Simard could have asked for a reasonable accommodation under federal law, not even apply for a zoning permit, really, a conditional use permit. And technically, he could also argue, if he wanted to, under the DOJ's stance on this, that he could say that he doesn't need a conditional use permit, and that the fact that we require him to have one for a sober living home violates federal law. So, I mean, the fact that he's willing to go through the conditional use process.
I thought that was the process that I had to go through.
Yeah, I got you. I tell you what. Here's what I think we should do. Karen, hold that thought. Go over there. Don't leave.
Oh, I
I
won't.
think we'll probably talk to you again. I'm gonna just take a wild guess, but if you leave, there'll be all kinds of trouble. What we'll do now is I'm gonna open this up for other comments from people. Just two quick rules. One, introduce yourself at the mic. Two, address us. Let's not have a conversation between whoever's at the mic and the applicant. Let's just address us. So if you could do that, we're gonna open it up right now.
My name is Kim Olson, and I changed what I was going to say a little bit because Mr. Simard kind of changed, and kind of tried to take back what he said about not putting it in a neighborhood that didn't want it. So I'm just going to talk about the evidence of why we're concerned about the management of this facility or this home. I am trying to be forward and big picture thinking about this, and a sober living home just got closed in Minot in March 2026 because they had multiple city violations of the requirements. That only took 2.5 years for it to be temporarily closed. It is called Seeds of Eden in Minot. This place has the same potential in our neighborhood that if it's not managed right and they, violate the requirements, then it could get closed. So, or the permit could be revoked is what they did. It is just the reality of it. At the very least, it needs to be placed within city limits where city officials will monitor it more carefully. And then this is what I found the article exactly about Seeds of Eden. It said, Seeds of Eden, a faith-based addiction recovery home in Minot, North Dakota, received its initial conditional use permit to operate at 425 Main Street South in late 2023. However, following a city inspection that found multiple code and operational violations, the Minot Planning Commission revoked its permit and the Minot facility was shut down in March of 2026. If Mr. Simard still wants to go forward with a sober living home after this request for this is denied, then he can cut the number of people he wants to help way down, to not look like a man camp style situation, as the board member rightly pointed out at the city planning and zoning, and he should request a permit for a property in the city limits and also pay for the fire suppression system in that property that he said he was trying to avoid by picking the location in our neighborhood in the county to avoid regulations that way. He said that at the township meeting about the price of a fire suppression system in the city, which also begs the question of what other regulations he is trying to avoid. Please vote with the recommendations of the township and the city and deny this permit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Bob Sanders. I'm a resident of Little Muddy Estates out in Farron Township. I just want to speak tonight on the request for denial on the permit just based on the critical infrastructure and safety of the community. Nothing about the people, nothing, anything like that. But first, our township's infrastructure cannot safely support a high-density, multi-resident facility of this scale. The location suffers from a geographical isolation. It's 15 to 25-minute drive into town. It's a 2.5-hour walk on rural roads with no sidewalks because residents will lack immediate access to employment, recovery meetings, and basic groceries. The site relies entirely on vehicle trips. The applicant's proposal introduces potential of 13 residential vehicles, plus an influx of daily traffic from visitors, counselors, Ubers, taxis, and other vehicles. Our township roads and the neighborhood's parking capacity are not engineered for this level of commercial grade traffic volume. More critically, the density proposes a direct threat on life safety emergency response times to this specific area range from 25 to 35 minutes, introducing 13 individuals in a single residential dwelling where they must share a single kitchen significantly elevates the fire and safety risk. A single kitchen serving 13 adults means constant heavy use of the appliances, dramatically increasing the likelihood of an accidental kitchen fire, where a half-hour response time could prove catastrophic. The property also relies on a 16 to 20-year-old septic system, and however, it has been upgraded to a second system, but many of the people in the subdivision have already had to upgrade their system because the original ones failed, including myself, right? So I technically have two septics. One of them is not really effective. But these systems are designed for a standard single family load of 3 to 5 people, not the continuous heavy waste of output of 13 grown men. Subsurface system failure is not a matter of when, but it's a matter of when, posing an immediate environmental risk to the neighborhood and the properties. Finally, I just want to look at the intent. I think we need to look at the intent. The owner, Mr. Simard, openly stated on record during the Farron Township meeting that this rural location was specifically selected to avoid some of this planning and zoning laws within the city limits, specifically regarding to the fire suppression system and the cost to install that in the original home he looked at, as mentioned. Bypassing some of the safety regulations to an unprepared rural area is improper use of the conditional use permit for the safety of the future residents and the protection of our infrastructure and the integrity of our zoning code. I urge the commission to deny the permit based on safety.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lacey Glukert. I have been an addiction counselor in Williston since 2008. I have owned and operated Choice Recovery Counseling and Outpatient Substance Use Counseling Agency since 2013. In 2021, I believe the county commission approved grant funding to allow me into the jail to provide groups for individuals that are incarcerated, substance use, mental health, any kind of behavioral issues. And that became a regular part of the county's budget. As far as I know, there was a lot of support for that. In 2023, in the behavioral health grants, I was also awarded a large sum of money to purchase a vehicle and to hire a peer support for 2 full years and to take trauma-related training. While that doesn't necessarily seem totally correlated, I do want to highlight how this is, right? Like the commission has really made a stand on supporting behavioral health. And by providing me those services, you've kind of opened the door or allowed me to open the door to support Steven in this venture right now. We've had a lot of issues in the last decade, right? Of getting people into treatment centers, which we've worked hard as treatment professionals to navigate. We've built relationships with treatment providers across the state. But what we don't have is reintegration into our community, which sets people up to end up back at the jail, to end up back in streets, to end up back on friends' couches, to end up next door to you and you don't even know it, that they're using drugs, right? Which is a lot of the fear right now about a group of sober individuals. And so I'm just standing here in support of this project. I'm not in business with Steven. What I'm trying to say is that there are treatment professionals in this community that have worked really, really hard, and you have supported financially to help us create creative ways to help people, right? And this provides us such a huge opportunity to kind of bring some of this full circle. The distance out of town is not a concern for our agency, the care coordinators of peer support. That vehicle that the county assisted me in purchasing today will drive to Ray. It will go to Watford City this week. It will go to Powers Lake this week. A 20-minute drive for a group of sober individuals who are actively working on recovery and being provided a safe, sober place to live is just huge in our community. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Tara Erikstead. I am wanting to visit with you today in support of this project. I went to high school with Steven, but that's the extent of my relationship there, and I do not live out in this subdivision. But I am here today because I've been kind of following this, right? And I hear the concerns, right? If this was out in my subdivision, I'm out in Southview, I would have some of the same concerns. I do think that some of those concerns are based on fear and not fact. Could there be a possibility that this is approved for a small amount of time and then reevaluated at a later date? Can we find some kind of reasonable middle ground, right? As a citizen of this community, I've grown up here, could that be possible? And the reason I'm so passionate about finding a way forward for this is I've been a foster care provider for the state of North Dakota for going on 6 years now. And I can tell you the impact, the downstream impact to children that, if parents have a place to reintegrate into that community, now all of a sudden we can have family visits. We can, start to bring families back together. And I don't doubt that everybody that's looking at this project is understanding the emotional piece of this. I also understand the operational piece of it. It's like, yes, that's great. We're not opposing this project. We're opposing where it is. I hear that. However, if not there, then where, right? Yes, okay, there's places, in the community. Is that any different? Are we going to be in any different situation there if we just move it? And I hear the concerns. Well, Steve Simard wanted to avoid fire suppression system. When you're starting a nonprofit, that's a real question, right? Would we be having these same conversations if the proposal was an in-home daycare? Increased traffic? I don't think so, because then that would benefit people, right? And this is scary, and it can be if you don't have all of the facts, and even if you have all the facts, it can still be scary, and you can still disagree with it. But that doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. And so when I think about this from just how it impacts me, I would love nothing more than to have a place in this county, in this community, where we can have parents that are struggling have a place to reintegrate into that community, because there is such a positive downstream effect of that on families. You can start those family visits again. You can have parents working a plan to try to bring families together. North Dakota Family First. That's the program that we're under. Like, reunification is the goal of foster care, and that's what we want. And this actually helps that too. And so I would just urge you to consider, some of that as well, because this goes far beyond even individuals reintegrating into a community. This can impact children and how they're growing up in proximity to their parents and potential reunification with their parents. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kathy Cartier. I'd like to bring to attention a covenant that was my husband and I, Charles and I, set up this subdivision in 2011. We did at that time set up a covenant that was recorded in that same year of 2011. If you'll notice on page 2, it says only one single residence. Page 2, number 2, only one single residence is permitted per lot. Duplexes or multiple unit residences are not permitted. And on page 4, J says business. The property shall not be used for any commercial or business practices. except for home-based business. And then it goes on to say, you can read the rest, it's highlighted in orange. Was the reason we set up this for a community living. We set it up for a single family dwelling. We set it up for non-business. And we had hoped that it would stay this way. This sober living home is considered a business. 501c3s are considered businesses. So once again, I just want to say that was not our intention ever when we set up this covenant. And I believe that this covenant should hold to this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Matt Clark. I'm here on a neutral standpoint, and I'm the state fire marshal for North Dakota. Mr. Simard had reached out to me a handful of times, and I'm just here kind of speaking on the fire code aspect and Century Code compliance here. So some of the statements as far as whether we're operating this facility in the city or the county and the ability to avoid fire code are not accurate in that aspect. So under our administrative rules for North Dakota and then Chapter 18 of the Century Code, the International Fire Code 2021 edition is adopted. So with that, whether you're in the county or the city, that is the minimum standard that has to be met. And for certificate of occupancies to be awarded, you have to meet that applicable standard. So whether he is in the city or the county or whatnot, that International Fire Code is adopted under Century Code, and he would have to meet that. So if the facility itself, with a fire plan review and everything, required a suppression system at that point, whether it's in the city or county, doesn't really matter. He has to meet applicable fire code in order for him to be issued that certificate of occupancy. He has reached out to me with several concerns on from the aspect of trying to make sure that he meets the utmost code. So he talked to me about different types of fire suppression systems that could go in, and then the addition of potential other exits and whatnot. So that way he would have multiple means of egress from each of the floors. So I did instruct him, and I know he's been working with the fire marshal for the county itself, but he called and asked from a fire code perspective where we were, and it would be something where under Century Code, my office would have to make sure that if a certificate of occupancy was issued for this, he would have to meet applicable fire code. So whether for or against, it would make sure that it was up to the 2021 standard at a minimum. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, I told you we'd get to you. I didn't
Thank
want.
you. I appreciate that. Charlotte Moore. Okay, I will actually submit my letter that I wrote because it's kind of long, and I'll just put it in for the record. So I want to first commend Steven Simard for having the bravery to come forward and actually try to start something like this in this community because of the recent loss we lost last week with a child that lost his life to addiction. I don't know the circumstances to that. I just know it had something to do with that. I know that this is a need in our community, and I hope that you gentlemen are paying attention. It doesn't need to happen in a residential area. I hope that you're not scared by being sued by the DOJ or whoever's in DC because you're not compliant or following your rules. It's a special use permit. So clearly that doesn't even apply. But I would like to point out and maybe ask my county commissioners to maybe go to the state and try to get funding for this. And how I propose that is there's so many man camps in this area that aren't being utilized. They're empty buildings. And we're paying $449 million per year in Williams County as a mill levy to support the state medical board in Grand Forks. Why can't we get some of that money back here? I mean, this is Williams County. That's the other side of the state. There's also the Garrison Diversion Conservation. I can't read that word. The Garrison Dam. What? Yes, that thing. There's that thing that shows up on our taxes too for our property taxes. That's $899 million per year approximately. That's another mill. We've been paying these taxes since like what, 1941? And the Garrison Dam diversion was set up so that it actually made Williams County a better, it was supposed to help with our farmland, I think it was. If people want to research that, they're more than welcome to. But just that $949 million, if we could come together with the state and the county and start utilizing our county property taxes that we're currently paying, maybe we can get this facility and help him obtain this facility that is desperately needed in our community. He's a brave soul for coming forward and asking for this. But the residents that live in that neighborhood are also being brave by speaking out and letting you guys know that this is not, they don't want this. So I'll submit all of this information so that you guys have this, but I would hope that you guys would come together as a county commission, get together with your state, bring back some of that property tax money that we're all paying in and put it back into our community and create the facility that he's asking for. That's all I have to say. Do you have any questions?
I have one comment.
Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure the one that goes to Grand Forks is in the Constitution. So I don't think we can
The
get that
money
changed.
that's going to
Yeah.
the state medical, well, the
Yeah.
Garrison diversion.
And I'm not positive, but I think that one might be too. I mean, it's not. I mean, we can sure.
That's
check.
not federal. That's state. That was something that was put through the state.
Right.
if you
No,
guys-
I'm talking about state. They're both state, and I think it's through them. But anyway, we don't need to get into
I'm
that.
just saying, can you guys please do due diligence and try to bring some of this money that we're paying back, hundreds of millions of dollars every single year, back to our county and provide what we're all asking for is to not put it in a residential area and just build a facility. Clearly we need one. We had one. What happened to it? Exactly. So any more questions?
None for me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any more people that wish to address the board?
Hi there. Good morning. I'm Danny Atkins. I live in Little Muddy Estates for the last 14 years. Throughout this process, many residents have consistently and respectfully expressed concerns regarding compatibility, occupancy levels, the added traffic not only to revolving clients, but their visitors, emergency response management structures, our covenant, and being a Little Muddy Estates, and the overall fit of a 13-person group home living arrangement within our neighborhood. In our township meeting, the applicant states, quote unquote, there are no services provided legally. A sober living residents cannot provide or mandate any services. This is more so a place that is secure and safe for them to live. We cannot provide services. We are not licensed addiction, nothing. So my question is if the true intent and heart is fully set on helping individuals be successful, why not get state licensed so you could provide the additional resources to set individuals for long-term success? Another concern when a board member asked what happens if an individual fails a drug test, the applicant states word for word, depending on the substance in the situation of the individual, they will probably have to go back to rehab or be evaluated. The word probably stood out to me because it suggests there may be discretion rather than clarity defined process. My concern is not people seeking recovery. My concern is whether the operational structure is significantly defined to ensure consistent management and clear expectations for everyone involved. As someone who has worked in social services and housing programs, I have advocated for resources and grants that help provide stable housing for individuals facing homelessness, including veterans struggling with addiction, PTSD, and other significant challenges. One thing I learned through this line of work is that housing alone is not enough. Immediate access and resources, support systems, transportation, accountability, employment opportunities, medical care, and community connections all play an important role in long-term success. My concern is not whether people deserve a second chance. They absolutely do. My concern is being 20 minutes out of Williston. The question before this commission is not whether recovery is important. Recovery is important. Myself having my own testimony on that. The question is whether the specific proposal is appropriate for this specific location. Recovery matters, housing matters, but location matters too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Marcia Bakken. I am a resident of the Little Muddy Estates. I want to address some statements that have been made during this process. Residents of the Little Muddy Estates has consistently expressed their concerns through the appropriate public channels and have focused their comments on the proposed use of this property and within the neighborhood and potential impacts on the community. At no point have residents sought to attack or demean individuals of recovery. For that reason, I was very disappointed to hear and see comments suggested that neighbor residents have been negative and unfair. Many of us have worked hard to remain respectful during this process. Even when expressing serious concerns about the proposal, opposing a proposed group living facility in a particular location is not the same as opposing the individuals who may reside there. Our concerns have also always been centered on neighborhood density management, and if management can make statements about the residents of the Little Muddy, that's a good management. The long-term impacts on our residential community. I do not believe the residents of Little Muddy Estates deserves to be characterized in a negative manner simply because they participated in public process and voiced concerns regarding a proposal that could affect their neighborhood, property rights, and their lives. And I think it's unjust for some of this social media that's been going around. We've never spoke negatively. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jayla Calderon. I didn't plan on speaking, but I've got something. Addicts are not transient, volatile, or troubled. These are our neighbors, friends, and coworkers, choosing accountability, support, and stability. Given the right tools, structure, and substance-free environment, we want to be the stepping stone to a second chance to endless opportunities and independence of their own. Sober living homes don't increase crime or bring problems to your street. They provide safety, community, and support, which are proven to reduce relapse, incarceration, and emergency medical care. These types of homes exist to improve the quality of life. If we truly care about family values, safety in our community, and long-term solutions, we should be asking ourselves and our neighbors, how can we help? And how can we educate ourselves enough so that we can support recovery and not push it into the shadows? Recovery belongs in our neighborhoods because people in recovery are our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Commission. Lonnie Stepler. This is the first I've heard about this, so I don't have a dog in the fight. But to Bo's comment about Bozeman, I believe that the city of Williston zoning, which I know doesn't pertain to the county, but in case it's helpful, at one point I believe they did limit single family housing to not more than 4 unrelated people. And I believe also a special use permit is required within the zoning district for single family housing for what they call quasi-institutional homes, which it seems to me that something like this may fall under that, which would then require specific off-street parking and those sorts of things. So in case that's helpful, please don't mark my words because I tried to find the citation in the city zoning ordinances. I couldn't find it, but it might be helpful to talk to the city planning and zoning to see how they might handle something like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anyone else? This will be for the final time. Anyone else? Okay, we are going to turn it back to the board. So if you have questions for anybody that's been up or comments, we can go from here.
I would just like to know from development and from legal, has Mr. Simard followed all the required protocols for his request and application?
For development services and planning and zoning, he has absolutely followed all the rules and been open and honest with any questions that we've gotten or that we've had. And yeah, no missteps with us.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Mr. Simard, the one question I have is pertaining to a comment that was brought up earlier regarding the septic systems. Is there anything that could be done with regards to the septic?
So the owner of the home, Lev Cooper, okay, I'm going to have him speak on the septic system.
Perfect.
Yeah, so as far as it's been brought up that community, there's a lot of septic issues. We moved into the house in 2016 and had septic issues right away. Had to constantly have it pumped out until we finally we tried a bunch of different things, everything to do it. In 2017, we put a new septic system in the backyard that was way overkill for what that house needed. We kept the one in the front yard, and once we directed the majority of the traffic to the back, both septic systems worked, and we haven't had issues with either. And also, I mean, with that, and we've had, when we lived there was 8 people in our family, plus we've had other people stay with us, live with us. And so over the last few years, well, since 2017, we haven't had any septic issues. Also, Steven mentioned that obviously is operating it. If there was ever any septic issues, he's going to be pumping, they would get it pumped out as needed. But yes, I can present the plans from our septic system we put in 2017. I mean, it was done through, we got permits and the whole work. So, yeah.
So there's literally 2 of them?
Yes, there's 2 active that both work, both are hooked up.
Okay.
And essentially what it is the house is split because of where the piping went. We would have had to rip out all the walls to route everything to the backyard. So the ones that were still on the front side, I think there's 2 bathrooms that go to the front. But once we took away that heavy usage, it started working, and the field opened back up, and it's been working great for however many years since then.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks.
I guess I have a question or two, Steve. My first question would be, we talk about all the ADA and all that stuff. How do you prove that somebody? I mean, how is there proof that they fall in that category?
So generally, to have proof, they have a history of addiction, and they can show that they've been through treatment, licensed addiction evaluator. They've been in active addiction to be classified as having that disability.
Okay, and then in the house, how does the management of the house work? I mean, is there somebody there all the time? Is there not somebody there? I mean, I don't know how it works at all, so I'm not.
So it's kind of been a touchy topic. If you look at different houses across the state, it varies. Every single facility is different. Keep in mind, these individuals are sober. They're working jobs. They're not going to be at the house full time. So the plan is to hire potentially 2 part-time individuals, nighttime, day shift, starting out. We just have to see what it's going to look like for the individuals with employment. Do we need to have somebody there when nobody's at the house? No. It's really going to depend on when the residents get in, what is it going to look like? And then we can decide as far as how we're going to manage the house.
So I have a family of 6, 2 boys, 2 girls. They fight all the time. as children do. So 13, up to 13 grown men living in the same home. Is there 13 bedrooms?
There's 12. We could potentially put 13.
Okay.
6-bedroom house, 2 residents per room.
If there isn't anybody on site, I mean, how I assume they're not always going to get along, and they
Absolutely.
get into a tussle. Yep. How is that going to be addressed?
So number one, we'll have cameras in all the common rooms so we can see exactly what happened. But if individuals get into an altercation like that, it's not tolerated in the facility at all. So they could potentially be removed. Depending on the circumstances to why there's an altercation, they could potentially be removed.
And who does the removal? Like if somebody...
Housing manager.
So, I mean, is it going to be a 5-foot woman or is it going to be a MMA fight, right? I mean,
so Jayla is the housing manager. Of course, I'm there as well. Not on site at all times, but I manage it as well.
In building a new home, obviously there's permits for septic.
Yep.
So is that the septic permit that is in place of that? I mean, does the health department need to review that and make sure, because it's all dependent on actual use or proposed use. So the fact that it works now is fine, but if you get 13 adults in there, will that permit be updated, and will the drain field be updated to those regulations?
If it needs to be, absolutely. And I would expect health and anybody to come in and inspect the property.
so if there were 13 and for some odd reason they all had a license, and you have someone at the house, so there's 14 vehicles, and if you have visitors, where do you plan on putting all of that traffic, or all the parking, the traffic itself?
It's a 2-acre property. There's ample parking for 14 vehicles. I think if you were to look around at the rest of the area, if you zoomed out, you could probably count anywhere from 5 to 10 vehicles at any given time in some houses there.
Right, but I mean, I guess I'm not entirely certain. You keep going back to your sewer system, but
right,
mine at my house, it's that half moon chamber ones, and you don't drive across them. You know that's a part of the yard that is off limits to anything other than a lawnmower, really.
I don't know exactly where the septic system is at. Lev could speak to that, but I don't believe it's in the area where parking is taking place.
Well, I would just, if you had a full house and not everybody's going to have a visitor at the same time, but so I mean, it's possible there could be 20 plus cars there. But I was just curious. It's because obviously the street won't hold them all, and I know that you don't let anybody drive across your sewer run, because that's a bad deal.
If that's all right, I'll speak quickly on that. So we have definitely had 15 to 20 vehicles at our house in the past, just with family events, parties, etc. Yeah, the one septic system is directly in the front yard. So to the left of the driveway, or to the south of the driveway. And then the other septic system is in the backyard, behind the house and the shop. The lines go out there, but in front of the house, in front of the shop, I mean, there's plenty of other parking on that property that, I mean, you could put 40 vehicles. Yep. That's the septic. Yep, exactly. That's there it is. Yep, that's the best map of the septic system.
Mr. Simard, can you kind of read the room and hear already how I think if there were a better operational plan stated, there would be a lot more security and answer a lot more questions, and those that are listening. And I think my recommendation to you would be to really solidify some definitive plans and operational situations for your home. On the other side of that, I find it interesting that in our culture, we bait people repeatedly through various means. We bait people and bait people and bait people to have a good time and drink, but then when they take the bait, they're chastised, and now we're debating whether or not we want to have a place for them to recover once they've taken the bait. I would surmise there's far more accountability for sober living in a group sitting than it is when people are living in a house by themselves or in your neighborhoods already. And we dispense liquor licenses all over our county, and now we want to have a sober living facility, and we're questioning whether or not that is a good decision to make. I find that an interesting thought there. And I understand the concerns of our community. There's, I think, a lot of unknowns, Mr. Simard, that your operational plans, being a little more solidified, would answer those questions for them. There was a time in our world when people feared that if you sailed too far away from land, you were going to fall off the earth entirely because the earth was flat.
Right.
Well, we know that's not the case now because we have that information. And so there's a lot of speculation on unknown things. And I guess on that, I would make a recommendation to approve the conditional use permit LU-0024-26.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
So I guess pertaining to the conditional use permit, Karen, is there any specific number of instances, or, you know, if the sheriff ends up out there 3 times in 6 months or 5 times or once or whatever, is there anything in the conditional use permit that says that's triggered, conditional use permit is revoked?
Again, if you're going to treat this sober living home different than you would treat a family residence, I mean, that would be considered discrimination, really. If you're going to impose a condition on the sober living home that you would not impose on a single family residence out in Little Money Estates, that would be considered discrimination, because you're treating the sober living home and the residents that will be living in that sober living home than you do the people that live in these other houses in the subdivision.
Well, but
with the CUP, we still are able to pull a CUP if there is cause.
Right, because a single, you know, my definition of single family, you know, the husband, wife, and kids don't have a CUP, so we can't. But we have plenty CUPs that are in place around the county that they have to follow what is stated in the conditional use permit, or we can pull it. That's the only teeth that we have behind that CUP. Because if we can't do that, then we just do whatever the hell you want.
That would be true, but those other CUPs are probably not subject to Federal Housing Act or the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act. That's one of the key things about this sober living home is it's got federal protection as opposed to other conditional use permits that you guys have approved.
So, I mean, there is 0 point to a conditional use permit for this project. Am I correct?
Well, I believe that I said technically he could argue that he doesn't need a conditional use permit.
So if he wanted to go about, I mean, if we denied the conditional use permit, then he has a process to do whatever he wants out there anyway. Is that correct? Under federal law, apparently?
I would argue that yes, he does.
So does federal law enforcement agencies deal with this because it's falling under this? Or, I mean, it's obviously still an issue with us if there's an issue out there, correct? Like if something happens, local law enforcement has to deal with it.
Well, just like local law enforcement would have to deal with any issue with any residents out there, not just this place.
Yeah, I understand. I guess my point is if federal law says that we basically can't deny it, period, for fear of a lawsuit, then, I mean, what's the point of bringing it?
I'm just saying you can't deny it because it's going to be housing people that are recovering from alcoholism and drug addiction.
Mr. Simard, would you be willing to follow a conditional use permit? if we approve one?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think that settles that discussion.
Well, except for, to me, if there's an issue and we say, sorry, your conditional use permit is revoked, it sounds like we end up in a lawsuit because it's discrimination for whatever reason.
It is a very gray deal.
Well, but if we put conditions in the conditional use permit and they agree to that,
if there's
if you
conditions,
violate the conditions, that violates the CUP. That has nothing to do with what the intention of it is. The conditions would be black and white, right on paper.
if those conditions, my understanding, and I'm not legal, so don't take what I say. My understanding is as long as it doesn't go against anybody in recovery, if it's a legitimate land concern, housing concern, then it can be applied. But if it goes towards any of the individuals themselves that are in recovery, then no.
I mean, except for I think it could be argued that if we say, man, there's 26 cars out there, you guys agreed there's 20, and the road's tore up, the neighbors are upset.
If it gets to that point, yes, and it's causing traffic issues and issues with the roads and everything, absolutely.
So I guess I'm going to bring up a comment that you made. And in just about everything we deal with in Williams County, on my opinion, it's about being a good neighbor. Mm-hmm. You talked about being a good neighbor, but you stated that if there was adamant opposition to this project, that you would move it.
Yep.
So there's adamant opposition to the project. You're still going forward, and I understand your convictions and your reason for it. However, to me, that's strike one on this is what he said he would do. Now he's going against it. How do you address that?
It goes against the reason why I started this foundation. I wanted to be a good neighbor and listen to everybody and try to collaboratively come up with something. But that's not possible because not everybody understands what a sober living house is or does. I truly feel like, this isn't a treatment center. We're not providing treatment. This is a place where individuals come after treatment and just need a safe place to live. This isn't a house filled full of criminals or people with horrible habits or sexual predators. It seems like everybody has that idea in their head, and that's not the case. So I'm a firm believer in what I'm doing. And if I'm going to get opposition or people are going to attack my integrity, my credibility, because I step back from trying to be compatible with people, so be it. That's fine.
So you just brought up a couple points that I just have a question on. You said you're not talking criminals, you're not doing it. So there is background checks, there's all that before anybody.
Absolutely. No sex crimes, no crimes against children, no violent crimes. Those individuals cannot be allowed. Any individual that has an open court case cannot be allowed. All fines with courts have to be current, up to date, and maintained. The payment plans if they have it with the court.
So, Karen, if we were to put a conditional or a condition in the CUP that says that they have to submit formal plans for processes, procedures, all of the stuff that's in question that Chris mentioned, is that okay to do?
Okay, let me put it this way. You can put those kind of conditions on there. However, if Mr. Simard does not agree with that, then he has the right to come back to the board and ask for a waiver or an adjustment to the conditions you put on there. So if he doesn't agree to that kind of condition, he could say, no, I don't want to agree with it, or he can just come to the board and you can insist on putting that condition on there. He can come back to the board and say, hey, I want a reasonable accommodation, meaning I want a waiver or an adjustment to that condition. So, and then we're back here again, really. So, I mean, it'll depend on if he's willing to submit to that kind of condition. The better course, if you're going to put conditions on there, is to put conditions on there that he would be agreeable to. Otherwise, you're going to open yourself up to a request that you forget those conditions, really, or that you revoke those conditions, because he's got the right to do that under the Federal Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. I mean, you can ask him yourself, are you willing to submit operational plans to the board or to the county for review? And and then again, if you're going to ask him to submit operational plans, who's going to review that, and what sort of standards are you going to use? You cannot use standards, or they're discriminatory. So, I don't know if that would be such a.
But could we ask that they're submitted to say that they passed the background check and did not, and were not a sexual predator, or the things you just said, Steve? I mean, is that not, you can't? And again, I'm asking. I'm not blaming you, Karen. I'm just asking because I don't know.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Come on to a mic if you're going to talk, Steve.
Individuals are protected under anonymity. HIPAA laws.
Yeah, and I guess I don't care if it was Steve's background check.
Right.
We just need to know that everybody has had it done. I mean, that's my, I guess that's my worry would be, is how do we know that it happened? You know what I'm saying? I don't want to know who it is or what the answer was. I just want to know that it happened.
Well, I mean, the fact that he has put it, that he stated to the board, and he's also put in his plans and stuff that they have to have some sort of a certification or some sort of, about doing a background check, and about the fact that they are recovering alcoholics. To me, that's really the most that you can do, really. I mean, you cannot ask him to come back and tell you every single person that lives in there whether or not they've passed a background check. You just can't.
So at the end of the day, what you're saying is we've just taken an hour of everybody's lives, and it's not going to matter, because if we deny it, he can come back and say, I'm going to go get it anyway, and he didn't really need the CUP. And again, Karen, I'm just asking.
No, I hear you. It's just like, I agree with Steven. He said that it's a gray area, and it really, really is. I mean,
And not every addict has a criminal background either. So,
and that's
some
not
of
what
them
I'm
could be
saying at all.
brothers.
Yeah.
This is my opinion. I'm against the conditional use permit, because it sounds like if we issue the CUP and try to revoke the CUP, it's a matter of discrimination, or it would be up to determination of a court of law that says, yep, you discriminated against them by pulling their conditional use permit. So how did Minot shut down that facility?
It's my understanding they had a majority of their issues were like with the housing itself, not up to code.
I mean, we issue liquor permits. We've got to deal with the consequences.
Well, and hang on for a second. We're at the board. If we have a question for you, we'll ask. Just a minute. Sex offenders do have to register, so that's pretty simple. That takes care of that one. They're registered. I understand. No, I understand, obviously, but as a sex offender, they have to register in order to live there. So, yes, please come up.
This is something that was presented to you but wasn't on site.
Sorry, ma'am. If you're talking, you've got to be in the microphone for the record. Yep.
Yeah.
Vicki Bowers, and I live out at Little Muddy Estates. One question that I do have is, nothing has been mentioned about insurance. What kind of insurance needs to be? Is it the men who live there? Are they responsible? Or is it the owners? Is it
You're addressing us. Okay. No.
That's the question I'd like to have answered.
Okay. And that's, I mean, we don't have any that in our zoning stuff. This is about planning and zoning, so we don't really go with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Right, but
we kind of closed everything on comments, so no. Okay, if you've got a comment on the CUP, you tell me.
My name is Lisa Heddick, and obviously I don't advise the county, but I'm an attorney here in Williston. I've been practicing for almost 15 years. And you had a question about, okay, if we issue it, how can we ever, if we need to, revoke it? How did you revoke the CUPs for the temporary housing? Your job, or the job of the zoning commission, is to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of the county. So if you look at a CUP and it's issued, it can be conditional on, it's always on the applying with all laws in the state, the county, and all ordinances. What does that mean? All of this stuff about insurance, that's something that has to be, if there's a specific law for it, you comply with it. If there's a specific law or a provision or policy as related to the sewer or the septic, that's for any other homeowner or any other business such as this. If there are provisions that apply to governing group homes such as this is not a single family residence issue. They need a CUP. Single family residence is not defined for this particular purpose under North Dakota law. It's not defined under this specific purpose for Williams County zoning ordinance. Neither is it defined under the city of Williston. I know this is outside the city limits. So then what does this court of law look at? They look at a reasonable interpretation of what that is supposed to mean. If you look at all of your provisions as related to what single family dwelling is defined as, it is a single family. It does not mean that every person has to be biologically related, but they have to be a family. So where you don't have that defined, you use a reasonable understanding under the law, something that's not ambiguous, and that would be a single family. So the purpose of me bringing that up is they need a CUP. They're here for the CUP. You're bound by the federal laws. You cannot reject the CUP based on who will be living there and what will occur. But when you grant the CUP, you can have the conditions in there that they have to apply, they have to comply with law, and they have to comply with all regulations. And when this comes up again, to be reconsidered, because every CUP is, you take into consideration, is there now an effect on the health, safety, and welfare of the community? So where you're saying, there's concerns with the roads, or there's concerns with, I think this is way out there, but there's concerns with police officers that are being called out there every day. There are concerns with this being not regulated and they're actually letting more than 13 people live there. There's concerns with people are actually, walking around into other areas of the community. Those are all things that can be dealt with by the CUP. And if that comes up later, you can reject it. It's the same idea of, is this something that we want to provide in the county? Temporary housing permits, right? Where we have the man camps. And at some point, can they be rejected? Yes. This is what CUPs are for, to provide a conditional use in an area where they're not otherwise allowed.
And I think you're 100% right, and we all agree with what you just said. But now we're back to the ADA issue, and we have to have the reasons, okay, the way you said it, and that's fine. I understand it, but we do have the ADA issue. So that's what we've been talking about.
Right. And what I'm saying is, so long as you cannot deny
Correct.
it based on that. If
Right.
you have other legitimate reasons, you can.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Any other questions? We do currently have a motion and a second. Bo, you got something?
So, I mean, that's my concern is I think there needs to be conditions about septic update, fire and suppression and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like we're behind the 8 ball. Like it's either approve or deny. Do we deny saying bring us back a definitive actual management plan, bring us back, proof that the septic system will handle all these people, proof that the road will be maintained, proof that this, proof that that?
Well, I mean, the planning and zoning division comments as part of this, if you approve this cup, they have to be in compliance with state and federal regulations for a group home. So if there's a state or federal regulation there or a law or regulation that requires them to update their septic or do anything else, then they have to comply with those things because they're neutral laws really. But what I'm saying is you can't put something extra on top of them because they're recovering alcoholics or drug addicts and because they're going to have 13 people there really. Because again, are you going to go through in all the residences and find out how many people are living in those homes really, and whether or not they're all related? So I'm just concerned that you don't put any conditions on there that sort of targets them because they're recovering alcoholics or drug addicts and because there's going to be 13 unrelated men living there really. And also they have to adhere to Wheelock County zoning ordinance too. So if some other zoning issue comes up, for example, I believe that under zoning regulations, they can't, whatever the zoning regulations that apply to that residential district, if they violate one of those, then that's a different story really, because it's not really based on who's living there or how many people are living there. It's based on a zoning regulation. So
because we didn't put that in our zoning regulation.
That what?
That single family dwelling is defined by, no greater than 4 unrelated persons in the home. Because if there's 5 unrelated persons in the home, they're in violation of the zoning. It's not in there. That's what.
That would be correct. Yes, but because
had we had that in there, then there would be a different discussion.
Yes, exactly how the discussion would turn out, it would just depend on exactly what that zoning ordinance said. Really, to tell you the truth, though. And I wish I could give you a black and white on this, but I can't. I can't. Yeah.
I'm not cranky with you.
No, I get it. What I'm just saying, is that, I understand the whole conditional use process about putting conditions on there. But again, we're dealing with, an additional part about federal law and protecting people that have disabilities or handicaps under federal law, really.
Okay. So. If my wife was in the room, she'd be like, sorry, he's cranky in general. So,
so this comes back to the question to Mr. Simard, is he willing to follow the conditional use permit process? And I believe you indicated yes, but just want to confirm that.
Yes. Okay, and that's with the ones that are written in this that we're approving, correct, is what you're talking about?
Yes, and if anybody else wanted to add something as a part of that. But
okay, so as it sits right now, we have a motion to approve what was presented at planning and zoning, and there are 7 evaluation criteria, correct? Me if I'm wrong, Michelle.
That's for the evaluation. The additional conditions, there's only 2. The ones right after that, I believe, on the.
Okay. And so if anybody wants to change or make an amendment to that, you would have to ask the commissioners if they would be okay with that.
Yes, with those 2 things listed there in the planning and zoning, I would definitely approve those.
Okay, Steve, you're good with that?
Yeah, and just to be clear, it's be in compliance with all state and federal regulations for a group home. And number 2 is adhere to the Williams County zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations.
Yeah, thank you for stating that, Mr. Kemp.
Okay, Bo, you got anything you want to add? Barry, anything? Okay. Beth, we will call for the vote.
Steve?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Bo?
No.
Chris?
Yes.
Barry?
No.
Motion carried. Thank everyone for their input. Appreciate it. Okay, now we're going to go on to Report of departments. Community engagement.
Good morning. I'm here to present the recommendations for the first cycle of the Rural Community Grant Program. This was approved earlier this year with utilization of the 1% sales tax dollars for rural community investment. There are a few more cycles here throughout this year and early 2027 with a focus on funds that can be expended this year or allocated for next year. City park districts and townships were eligible to apply for a 2026 expenditure, and then nonprofits were eligible to apply for a 2027 allocation. There is a population requirement on this that it had to be with entities that operated in a population of 5,000 or less. We did receive 5 applications for this cycle, 2 from political subdivisions, so City of Ray and Wild Rose Park District, and then from 3 nonprofits, AgroStars, the Tioga American Legion, and the Tioga Historical Society. The Finance Committee operates as the review committee for these grant applications, and they made a recommendation to approve the requests as presented. So there's 2 for 2026, and then 4 for the 2027 allocation as presented in your packet. The other thing that was discussed, just to provide as a clarification, as we move forward with viewing different needs of the community and how these applications come in, to provide a clarification that recreation-based projects from nonprofits would be encompassed in that umbrella of community service-based nonprofits.
Okay, anybody got any questions for Lindsay? What are the wishes?
Make a motion to approve the Rural Community Grant Award. Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Discussion? Roll call, please.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thanks.
Thank you. Looks like you're up, Tanner.
Tanner Shawn, County Highway. For our boom mower bids, we received 1 bid from AppMax Equipment for a Gen 4 mower max with a bid price of $352,227, which includes a full machine warranty for 5 years, 6,000 hours. I just want to mention that. I think that's extremely important. Estimated time delivery is 90 days, but could be looking at 60 to 75 days potentially. I would recommend approval of the Mormax bid and authorize myself and the chairman to sign the purchase agreement. They want 2 signatures.
I would so move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. The only discussion I had, I saw this thing working. It's a great machine. I mean, it's awesome the way, and the safety of our staff is going to be huge. Not getting down in those steep ditches and stuff. It's a nice piece of equipment.
Year-round versatility for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good news. He got grass to mow too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thankfully, with the
Okay,
low rate.
moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Bo,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tanner. Weed control.
Morning, gentlemen. Tom Leo, Williams County Weed Control. I was here a couple months ago, give my department report, and briefly touched on a problem that has come up in the county with particularly kochia. It's not listed as a noxious weed, and I don't think we want to go there right now, but some discussions have been had, meetings have been had, and issues have come up. So I was asked to see if I could find somebody that could give you guys some data and research on what we've come up with, and possibly some best management practices for mainly talking industry in the area. So I did that. I reached out. Unfortunately, it's kind of short notice. I couldn't get anybody here in person, but I do have somebody online to present some data for you. And I think what we're looking for is just your blessing, your backing, and possibly a letter from the commission to the North Dakota Industrial Commission to hopefully update some of their management practice rules. So with that, we have Derek Sebastian on the line, and he will give you some information, and then hopefully we can answer some questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure can.
Great. Good morning, commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to present to you all this morning. Apologies, I'm not there in person. Like Tom said, I'm in Idaho for another conference, but really just look forward to presenting just a little bit of kind of the state of kochia resistance. I'm not going to focus really anything on Enview, which is our company. We work in the vegetation management realm throughout the U.S., work a lot with railroad applicators, oil and gas applicators, really directly on the ground with folks trying to battle these herbicide resistant weeds and vegetation management. So just wanted to give you kind of a background on what we're finding based off of some of the treatments that have been going on in your area the past few years, and just some new best management practices that are starting to be adopted in other regions that I definitely recommend for you guys in North Dakota. So with that, we'll kick things off. And really what we talk about is kochia. That's the major driver weed for a lot of our sites. When you look at resistance issues, the fuels, just like this photo shows, it really summarizes the impact of this species. You know, over time, the escapes that we have then result in wildfire risk based off of the fuel and that fine fuel that are left on those sites, which increases the risk, obviously, within those areas. So that's really the key driver with this conversation as we move forward. And again, this is a photo in your neck of the woods. You know, these wildfires are becoming more and more frequent, more intense, as we have seen this year, especially. You know, you see Wyoming the past couple of years, Nebraska had 850,000 acre fires. So controlling the vegetation is key, and that's really the major driver in a lot of cases for doing vegetation management, is to reduce the risk on the landscape for these oil and gas operators. And just another photo showing the impacts that these wildfires can have. And then I've been in this industry over a decade now, working with different tools and solutions for bare ground land managers. And really what we're finding is that old chemistry has the increased risk for this off-target movement, similar to what this photo shows. When you look at some of the older chemistry, it's just very water soluble. It's used at much higher rates than some of the newer chemistries. And that's really a major factor in some of the non-target impacts that we're seeing in North Dakota and throughout the West, honestly. And just going back to some of the greatest challenges and how we can move forward, I'll talk about that here in a few slides. But when you look at different herbicides and different tools and when they were discovered, right, most all the tools that are in the toolbox were from the 1980s and before. There's not a lot of newer chemistries. There are some options out there. And I think that's a big part of this conversation, is adopting some of the newer tools. And we'll talk about resistance and to some of the older chemistries as well. But there's that aspect. And then also, I think a major challenge is we've been doing things the same way for decades when you look at vegetation management as an industry. And I'll talk about shifting our mentality of different application timings and the success we're seeing with that. But I think what we're running into is the lack of willingness to make some of these little changes when you talk about when I go out and do treatments, what tools we can use. And that really plays a huge factor in the success that land managers can have on the landscape. And then that photo on the right is actually from some oil and gas sites, showing you how that fine fuel, how those fuels can persist and become more of an issue over time on these sites where we don't get very good control of the species like kochia. And just so you're aware, this is a Weed Science Society of America bulletin talking about the top herbicide resistant weeds. Kochia, no surprise, is one of the major drivers, as well as Russian thistle and some of the other driver weeds that you'll find on a lot of the oil and gas and bare ground sites throughout the county that you guys are dealing with. And just to show you herbicide resistance overall, this is the different modes of action. And like I mentioned, the older chemistry, there just is more resistance to these different herbicides. And the ALS and PS2 inhibitors is the old diurons, the old bromacil, imazapyr, some of the older chemistry. There's just a lot of resistance out there. So we can't really bank on those to give us the level of control that these guys really need out there on the landscape. And then there's obviously fluroxapyr dicamba, post-emergent type products. The longer that you wait to spray these kochia plants, the larger the plants are going to be, the limited success you're going to have, in addition to the resistance issue that we're talking about right now. So when you wait till June, when you wait till July to go out and do these treatments, you're going to have resistance post-emergent to fluroxapyr dicamba, some of these products. And just to show you guys some of the newer chemistry, PPOs, the indaziflam side, there's much less resistance, and a lot of these are soil applied products that you can spray pre-emergent. So before the weeds germinate, and spray those the fall before, and they're actually going to provide that long lasting control throughout the entire growing season. So we'll talk more about that here in a second. This is a timeline, a lot going on in this slide, but what I wanted to just show and drive home with this point is that over time, 90s, we saw a lot of resistance to the SU different products. PS2s was 2005, glyphosate resistant 2007. But as you move to the right, 2018, 2025, 2026, we're now getting multiple resistance. One kochia plant now, it's not just resistant to glyphosate. It could be resistant to 4 or 5 different products that are in the tank. And so utilizing some of the newer chemistry, some of the products that are pre-emergent, so we don't have to rely on the post-emergent treatments that are a lot of resistance to, like you see on here, glyphosate and dicamba. That's most of our post-emergent products. So that's really the idea of switching our mentality to have the success that we need to control this massive plant. So that's the question here: is resistance at the forefront of folks that are going out there and making these applications, and how does that influence your program? And if it doesn't, it's something that really needs to be considered to have success. As a case study, I just wanted to show you, this is Colorado, Wyoming, and Nebraska, some Montana. But what they did is they targeted kochia, lamb's quarter, palmer amaranth, looking at resistance. And this is just showing you kochia, glyphosate resistant kochia. So just spraying glyphosate or Roundup on kochia, 94% of those plants in Colorado were resistant, 98 in Nebraska, Wyoming was 75. And I would say North Dakota would be worse than some of these numbers that you're seeing here. We're just finding more and more resistance as you get to that Canadian border. And so as staggering as this is basically saying that even if you have glyphosate, even if you have dicamba, even if you have some of these products in your tank in that middle of the summer where those plants are actively growing, it's not going to control those plants, which means it's going to have that fire risk and that lack of control on the landscape. So what are some things that are within our control? There's a few things in terms of timings and different mixes, what we know and what I explained. If you can get out before the weeds germinate, your success rate almost doubles. You're able to provide control of these plants before they're actively growing, before they can metabolize the herbicide. So that's really key. Number one is use some of these soil active products that are going to give you that lasting control. That's really one of the key factors. And then the second is changing the way that we do our timings. I think that's going to be the major shift in vegetation management. That's going to be a requirement moving forward, because post-emergent, we can't spray weeds now in May, June, July, like we could 5, 10, 20 years ago. It's just not working. So we got to be able to shift our management strategy, and timing is really key. And here's a case study from Williston, North Dakota. This was this last season. This is kochia. This is indicative of what resistant kochia looks like. The resistant plants are green, and they're directly adjacent to plants that were controlled, showing you that there's this different level of tolerance to the herbicide. But if you can see all the carcasses that are still within that site, all the escapes, how that could carry a fire, the risk within that location, that's really what we're finding in this. And the scary part was this was applied 3 times, 3 different applications with fluroxapyr, dicamba, glyphosate. These kochia plants could not be killed post-emergent. And that's really the driving point with that. We actually took those plants back to the lab at CSU, and they confirmed glyphosate resistance, ALS resistance, dicamba resistance. So everything that was applied in that tank for post-emergent control, there was confirmation that that single plant was resistant to all of these different products all at the same time. So kind of wrapping up as we move forward, how do we tackle this problem? And really the key to me and what we're finding is that identifying, adopting new tools, changing the way we think about things. Tom addressed that, and they're the experts in the area, but really adopting these new ideas and new tools, because what we're finding is that newer innovation is having the most success. So like the left-hand side, these are studies we put out this last year. Successful treatment on the left, the right was resistant kochia, really didn't even touch those plants. So we got to change the way that we're thinking in terms of our approach. And then timing, I'm not going to, I could do a whole presentation on timing, and I've talked about this, but this is a summary of a study that we did a few years back looking at all different tank mixes that are in the industry. What are some of the mixes that are most successful? And really what we found is that as important as the mix was, the timing of that application was actually more influential in the success that we had. And this is a really good photo just summarizing what that looked like. And what we're seeing here, so you see a spring treatment and a fall. The blocks that are right next to each other is the same exact treatment, just the timing was different. And what you'll notice is that we got almost complete control of these plants when we did that fall application. Again, we're not allowing those plants to grow. We're not allowing them to metabolize and show the resistance in that post-emergent application. If we can go out in the fall, we're seeing much higher levels of success on the landscape. And I've seen this. I work with applicators throughout the whole country, and this change in timing is really getting people over the hump when it comes to controlling these resistant weeds. And really the idea is in the fall, you can get it out pre-emergent, you get more moisture, you get some moisture in the winter to get those products to the soil before those weeds even start to germinate. And that's where you can really get ahead of the game when it comes to this. So last slide, moving forward, what are the management strategies that I recommend just working in this industry for so many years? It's using the right herbicide tank mixes that aren't resistant. Some of the newer chemistry isn't going to leach off site. It's going to be more stable. It's going to last throughout the whole growing season, and really shifting to that fall and winter timing. If the weather's good, if they can get out pre-emergent, these applicators, that is where you're going to see the most success. And that's going to limit your retreats. You're going to save more money. That risk of ignition for the wildfires, you're going to have less escapes and less of the fuel within those sites. And another thing, not cutting rates, that'll result in resistance if you cut rates, and then controlling as many of the escapes as you can. But again, if we don't have post-emergent tools in our toolbox that work because of resistance, we have to change the way we think about things. And timing is something that I highly recommend changing. So that's all I have. Just a quick summary of some of the learning, some of the ideas behind what we found in North Dakota and other places in the country in terms of increasing the success of the landscape. So thanks. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Derek. So he touched on quite a few things there, and I realize it's a lot to take in, and I'm certainly available at any time to talk with you more on this, so we don't take up more of your morning. But in a nutshell, the biggest thing is we need to prompt the Industrial Commission to maybe put more regulation or rules in there to change the timing of our applications. As he showed, we have at least 5 different groups of herbicides that we're showing resistance to. This is as bad as Palmer amaranth. The scary part of this kochia problem is the metabolic changes that it's gone through. This plant is actually metabolizing herbicides. It's eating them up and spitting them out. It has developed other enzymes and whatnot to work around some of the herbicides, but now it's metabolizing them. That's scary.
So one of the things that brought this on was a discussion I had with the Department of Mineral Resources about oil pad maintenance, because when we had that fire, what started the discussion is when do the oil companies know when to shut in their flares? If it's super dry and there's 60-mile-an-hour winds coming, it's it activates part of the plan to shut them in. But some of these well sites are close to forage or extra fuel or have additional weeds on there that weren't controlled that the flare has access to. So I think what Tom is looking from us, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to open up a discussion with the Industrial Commission of how do we address this? How does the Industrial Commission reiterate to the Department of Mineral Resources and oil companies that what we're doing may not be working. You could hire the same crew to come out and spray it 5 times. It doesn't matter. And I mean, agriculture, we're all a part of this because I've got it on my farm. I'm looking at fields right now that I'm not sure what I'm going to do with. I used paraquat where I would normally use glyphosate, still got a problem, which is interesting because I was under the impression that paraquat would destroy everything. It doesn't.
That's scary.
So, am I wrong? I mean, that's
Nope,
what you're asking us.
100% correct.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the commission, through Lindsay, work with the weed department to draft a letter in Industrial Commission to bring this issue to light and help seek solutions.
Okay, that's a motion, I'm assuming. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. With comments, have we talked to Mackenzie or Dunn or Mountrail yet?
We're all in the same boat.
Right. Well, but I'm just saying if they're all doing the same thing, it makes a lot more impact if four of us send a letter. I mean, I'm good with it, obviously, but if we can get them on board to do the same thing, maybe they'll listen, because I'm sure we're all in the same spot.
And yeah, I guess I would even amend it to seek support from neighboring counties to sign on that letter too, for more support, if that's okay.
Who seconded that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we're good with that. We'll add it. Okay. Any other questions or discussion?
Well, just cause I guess back here a few weeks ago when it was terrible, dry and windy, they've had 2 fires around the Tioga area from the flares. So it'd be a good thing.
Anything else? Roll call, Beth.
Chris,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
Motion carried. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. No other department heads, so I think we're to Helen.
Good morning.
Morning.
Right. We have some people from the library board here, and so I think I'll go right to that item first so that then they maybe didn't know how long of a meeting we were going to have here today. Right. So if you remember, I came to you at the last meeting. We talked about I was on my way to the library board that evening. Just over the week or 10 days before the meeting, we had been in discussions with the city about our finance director becoming the treasurer for the joint library board. And I said at the same time, and we'd been talking about having our finance director appointed to that board so that we had a different kind of path of involvement. What I didn't figure out, my omission in all of that, is that the JPA actually says the person who's serving as treasurer cannot be a director. And so that got figured out actually thanks to Lisa, who you heard from earlier today. So at that meeting then, we pivoted a little bit. We have 2 open seats and we have 2 applicants for those open seats. Now, I wasn't there for the end of the meeting, but I understand in that discussion, some members of the board, and I think both of them are here who had these comments, said, oh, we think there's applications that we're missing. And we've scavenged through our system. We did a little testing. I'm confident that there are no missing applications. The city also has openings they appoint for, and we appoint for to the library board. And so I think that maybe if there's something, if somebody thinks they applied, it may just be a misunderstanding of which organization. I asked to be contacted by the people whose applications were supposedly missing, and I didn't hear from anyone. So I'm not able to track that down any further than that. So you have in your packet The library the library board in their discussion, although they have 2 applicants, wish to have a broader pool of people to choose from. And so they're asking this board to relist this opening, or these 2 openings, I assume, for some longer period of time. In the correspondence that you get, that just gets, you guys get carbon copied into some email that happens along the way. You know that we posted this position for our typical 45 to 60 days. When it was closed on May 7th, we only had 1 application and we had 2 seats open. Although I knew we had been talking about having our finance director appointed, the people in HR didn't know that. And so they left it open because we had 2 seats open and only 1 application. And a second application came in then, somewhere after the fact, but before these recommendations were sent to the library board. So I think you have now all of the background information that you might need. I think the library folks board who have been here want to make a comment.
Helen, just a quick question. That's not odd for us to leave it open if it didn't fill. I mean, that's how we normally do.
We've had the Tioga ETJ open for a long time.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something that we were doing different than.
No.
Well, if somebody want to talk, come on up.
How's it going? Good. You guys had a long meeting. I'll try to keep it quick. My name is Rachel Lockway. I'm a library board member. I'm going to just add some additional context around the discussion of the 2 presented board applicants that we had at the May meeting. I am not speaking for a quorum of the board. We did not have this discussion after the meeting, but based on our conversation during the meeting, I am representing the general thoughts. Okay. As you may know, as we just discussed, right, the library financials are being transferred to the county's accounting system. So within that discussion, it was determined that Christy Hansen, who will now serve as the library board's functional treasurer, so like capital T treasurer, is no longer eligible to sit on the library board. So when we went into the board meeting that evening, we had 3 potential applicants, and now we have 2 applicants. In and of itself, we'd prefer for the county to go back out for advertisement because we would prefer and think it's the best service to citizens to have the ability to weigh the pros and cons of applicants adequately, not just take the 2 people who applied. I recognize that this was open for a while, but people, I think we see this on a lot of our boards, right? I service a lot of boards across the state. It's really hard to get people to sit on boards. So we had 2 people. In particular, in this instance, though, while going out for re-advertisement would be our preference, at the very least, what we would like to request is that Lonnie Stepler not be appointed to the board, leaving an open seat. Her application makes it clear that she believes this board is a political board. It's not, and nothing in our board's history, operating regulations, or state statute indicate that it's a political board. We are not making political statements, and we do not believe politics has a place on our board. If the national conversation has injected libraries into its discourse, that's too bad. That's on them. But our goal is the same as it's ever been, to provide the community with a free educational gathering space centered around a love of books, reading, and knowledge. Ms. Stepler has not attended library board meetings in the past and has in fact only entered into discourse with the library once to our knowledge, when in 2023 she presented a frankly pretty hateful and harassing packet of information, putting in quotes, to the county commission, including harassment of a board member who still sits on the library board. The county commission did not give credence to her then and should not give legitimacy to her now. The citizens of Williams County and Williston do not need someone on the board who is only there to make a political statement. The library board is a nonpartisan board of appointees providing support to the director and staff to provide quality educational outreach, community events, public services, and a true third place for the community. An individual whose goal is to thwart those objectives by turning the board into a political space does not serve citizens of the county, and we would urge you to leave the seat empty rather than appoint Ms. Stepler to the board. But our true request is just to go out for more applications. Thank you, and I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank
it's a little
you.
out of my wheelhouse. Sorry for the nervousness.
Good morning. Again, my name is Lisa Heddick, and I'm here as a library board member as well. I don't have much to add from what Rachel indicated, but again, I just wanted to clarify that we would, as a board, we did vote to table our decision and to instead as to whether we would move to approve the appointees, the applicants as to be new appointees. And we made a formal motion that Rachel and I would come to this meeting and ask you also to table and to reopen the advertisement for the position. So that was actually our official vote at the meeting, that you reopen and acknowledging that at least for that time period, there will be at least one board chair that is open. However, with re-advertising for that short period of time, the board position would remain open for that very limited short period of time. I think it's actually only maybe a month at the most. And then by the point of the application period closing and us taking a vote on whether and who to recommend to you all as the board for an appointee, by that next, hopefully in that next meeting, we would have somebody. So recognizing that nobody wants to have a board missing a member, it would be for a short period of time. All of the board members that were in at the meeting, at the library board meeting, recognize that that would be the scenario here. But given the need, even though yes, it is difficult to find people to sit on boards, recognizing that that we know that there may be other people interested, giving that short period of time would allow us to facilitate that. And if by chance then we only have 2 applicants by that point, then that's what we have. But we saw it as our broader duty to make sure that was open to more people, particularly here where, again, as Rachel stated, we're not a political board. We're here to provide for the library management and supervision. And so that was the purpose for our official vote at the library board meeting. And we would then respectfully request that you all table this appointment and allow us to reopen the position for advertisement and take in all applicants at our next library board meeting, and for then us to make recommendations to all for an appointment at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there any questions on what's going on from the board?
How many individuals are seated on that board,
City and the county each appoint 4.
on the library board?
Correct. So 8 total.
And for how long was this advertised as being open?
I don't know that I have that. Oh no, I do. Hold on. April 8th through May 7th was the first notice, or was the first sort of, that was our 60-day point. And then again, we left it open for a week or 2 after that. Yeah, we usually, it's 45 to 60 days, just depending on how meeting schedules happen. That's our standard practice for any public seats on a board.
I'm having a hard time with the math. April 8th to May 7th has nothing, it's not even close to 45 days.
Oh.
So that's where I'm struggling. That's the look on my face.
No, you're right. Yeah, that was only 30 days. Mm-hmm.
I've served as the chairman of a board in a capacity where the board members were chosen for me. Sometimes you get board members you love, sometimes you get board members you're not in love with, but it creates a great schism and makes for a stronger board sometimes.
Okay, any other questions, comments? What are the wishes of the board?
Well, my feeling is it was open. We have 2 applicants. I would make a motion to appoint those 2 to the library board on behalf of the county.
And I'll second that.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Discussion? Roll call, please.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
No.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, on to the staffing report. We do have 1 corrections deputy position that we're seeking your permission to fill.
Okay, what are the wishes?
I'd move to fill that position.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Motion carried.
I have one other item for you. As some wrap up related to our fairgrounds purchase, we have done a full survey. We have a plat that is just making its way through the end of the city's process. There were a couple of parcels and we're combining them all into one in that plat. And then we are conveying the road, which the city has the easement for and has been responsible for maintaining. Once we get it's a subdivision plat. So once we get it recorded, then we will convey the road officially to the city of Williston. If you remember, the Upper Missouri Valley Fair Association conveyed the other portion of the road earlier, late in 2025. So what we'd like is your permission for the chairman to sign the plat, not in our normal plat signing, but as the owner of the property, to sign the plat when it's complete, and then to sign the quitclaim deed, which would allow for the conveyance of that road.
Okay. What are the wishes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Discussion? Roll call, please.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Motion carried.
That's all I have, unless you have something for me.
I think we've covered it. So everybody good? We will adjourn at 10:21.
You guys don't have planning for board utilization?